What is going on, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to review the new film Cocaine Bear, which goes into wide release this weekend. And I won't talk about any spoilers at first, but there's really nothing to spoil. It's a movie called Cocaine Bear. Giant bear, does a lot of cocaine, rips a lot of people to pieces. The end. And you're in and out in 95 minutes. And I might have a few observations or critiques to make toward the end of the video that are a little bit more plot specific. But in general, this is going to be a spoiler-free review. But the film was written by Jimmy Warden and directed by Elizabeth Banks. And if you're unfamiliar with the concept, here's the official description from Wikipedia, which actually ties into a brilliant gag in the film, but I won't spoil that. But here's the description. The film is loosely inspired by the events surrounding a 175-pound American black bear that died after ingesting a duffel bag full of cocaine in December 1985. The cocaine had been dropped out of an airplane piloted by Andrew C. Thornton II, a former narcotics officer and convicted drug smuggler, because his plane was carrying too heavy a load. Thornton then jumped out of the plane with a faulty parachute and died. The bear was found 3 months later in northern Georgia alongside 40 opened plastic containers of cocaine. The bear is currently on display at the Kentucky for Kentucky Fun Mall in Lexington, Kentucky, which named the creature Cocaine Bear in 2015. And I will admit that I went into this movie a little skeptical. Like when the trailer first dropped, everybody lost their mind, and I was like, well, it's a funny trailer, but is this a gag or a gimmick that's going to wear off in like 5 minutes, or can it sustain an entire feature film? And I won't claim that the whole film is created equal, but for like the first hour or so, I was chuckling right along with the rest of the audience. The crowd experience was pretty good on the whole. And while the film falls off a little bit toward the end and feels a hell of a lot longer than its meager 95 minutes, I applaud it for being a 95-minute feature, which is definitely a vanishing art form, the tight, economical feature film. But even so, there's not a lot of material in this to kind of shovel thin across an hour-and-a-half long film, but I did enjoy it. And if you've been looking forward to it, I think you should throw down your cash, see it in the theater, just so you can enjoy the kind of the infectious mood of the crowd reacting to all the gore and comedy, etc. and so forth. I definitely think it's going to play much better with a crowd than at home, and I think it'll be modestly successful. I mean, the movie's only got a budget of $35 million. It does not have to do Disney numbers or Marvel numbers or anything like that. And I hope the film will find an audience, because I want to see more 90-minute R-rated irreverent comedies hitting the screen. And it's funny how a good crowd can really make or break a movie-going experience, because when I walked into my theater, this Regal near Union Square here in Manhattan, the crowd was a little unruly during the trailers, and there were these two girls in the back row who were talking to each other as if they were like screaming at each other across Broadway, like they needed to project their voice across like 30 or 40 feet in order to hear each other. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. But then I just decided to kind of resign myself to my fate, because this is not the 80th anniversary of Casablanca or something like that. If you're going to go see a movie called Cocaine Bear, you're going to get a crowd that wants to see a movie called Cocaine Bear. However, a funny thing happened. They showed the Red Band trailer to that Talking Dogs movie, Stray. And I have to admit, the Red Band trailer to Stray actually was kind of funny. But as soon as that trailer played, everybody started laughing and everybody settled in and just focused on the flick. But one of the main reasons I was skeptical going into the movie is that I worried it was going to be one of those flicks that was outrageous on the surface, but that secretly was going to contain a lot of heavy-handed messages, which happens quite a bit with a lot of comedies. And for me, it's hard to be a comedy and a message-driven film at the same time. Usually, if you want to be a comedy, you need to be making fun of message-driven movies in order to sustain or maintain just the genre of being a comedy. But I have to admit that this movie, it never succumbed to that temptation. It actually stayed true to its genre core, or its genre roots from start to finish. The only reason that it kind of falls off toward the end is that it starts to try to take things a little bit too seriously with the character played by the great Ray Liotta, R.I.P. Ray Liotta gave us decades of great performances. Obviously, Goodfellas is the one that everyone remembers, but he was a world-class talent, and he's fantastic in this, but they lean a bit too heavily into his whole gangster persona in the end. I'm like, this is a movie called Cocaine Bear. There should not be a single, solitary, sincere moment in the entire flick. But another reason I was a little worried ahead of time was due to director Elizabeth Banks. And admittedly, she is a very, very funny comedic performer. I mean, Wet Hot American Summer, that is a true cult classic at this point. I can't believe that movie's over 20 years old. But as a director, she has a small track record of berating the audience. She had this quote about her last film, Charlie's Angels, where she said, "If this movie doesn't make money, it reinforces a stereotype in Hollywood that men don't go see women do action movies." And at the time, I wanted to say, if the movie's amazing, people will go and they won't give a fuck who directed it or who's in it. Like, as a little kid, I saw these 3 movies, Near Dark, Blue Steel, and Point Break. And I loved them all. They were all very stylish, very entertaining, very quotable, very rewatchable. And at that time, I had no idea that they'd all been directed by Catherine Bigelow. I learned that many years later, but the movies, they worked. They were great. They were fantastic. They were crowd pleasers. So in the end, if you make a great flick, people will go. But the only comments that I saw Elizabeth Banks making about this particular film was when she described it as a satire on the war on drugs, which is true for about 15 seconds. I mean, there's one scene in this film where they show a bunch of commentary about the war on drugs, like certain commercials and infomercials and talking heads and that sort of thing. And I remember all those commercials from my childhood, and the scene is very funny in the context of this film, but it's not a satire on the war on drugs. This is a movie about a cocaine bear, and I think the reason it'll be successful is that the movie stays very true to that core idea. People who are coming to see this movie are going to want to see the bear rip people apart in hilarious fashion, and it does so repeatedly throughout the film. The film spares no details when it comes to limbs being thrown in all directions and people getting their bodies torn to pieces, etc., and so forth. And if any of you get any pushback from people saying, a movie about a bear killing people is not funny, just tell them, yes, it is, because clearly they have not seen the movie, because this movie easily passes the famous 6 laugh test that has been described by Mark Kermode. I would say probably passes it by a pretty healthy margin, and I wasn't necessarily always laughing alongside the rest of the crowd, but there were some lines of dialogue and some performances that were just absolutely outstanding. So let me call attention to some of the fantastic cast in this flick. I already mentioned the great Ray Liotta, and he will be missed, but the real standout performance in this film is by Isaiah Whitlock Jr., who completely steals the show as the detective who's trying to track down this missing cocaine. He is just funny as fucking shit. He's got this amazing relationship with this new dog that he's bought. He wanted a lab, like the classic man's best friend, and instead he's got this very kind of feminine dog who won't play fetch. At any rate, it's completely adorable and endearing, this relationship he has with this animal. And he just has a way of leaning into the script and just selling the lines. And even if the line isn't very good, he physically contorts himself so much as he's expressing these lines that he'll win you over with each and every single scene in which he appears. But moving on, we got Christian Convery and Brooklyn Prince as these 2 little kids who are lost in the woods while this bear is going on a rampage, and they're amazing. Like, their chemistry is incredible. Child actors can be hit or miss big time, but holy shit, they have some of the best lines of the film. And their chemistry as they are discovering drugs and realizing the danger of their situation, in a lot of ways, they were kind of the heart and soul of the film. But if we're going to be honest, the real heart and soul of the film is the relationship of the 2 characters played by Alden Ehrenreich and O'Shea Jackson Jr. They're 2 crooks that are working for Ray Liotta. And they're incredible. They're this great duo. And honestly, if they were to be teamed up in like a buddy cop movie or a buddy western or any kind of buddy film of any kind, I would watch them again. They work well together. I feel like a really good actor knows how to tee up what's coming next by their partner in crime, where they make the whole scene better, because if the whole scene's working, both actors look good, and they just really get that ebb and flow between 2 actors. But looking beyond just the performances of the actors, we've got some really fun, groovy tunes. If you like 80s music, there's nothing but 80s music from start to finish throughout the whole film. You will absolutely have a blast. But in the end, like, the feature attraction of this film is the gore and the bear. And I think the bear, it's both good and bad, because the folks at Weta Digital or Weta FX, they're being asked to do a lot with the special effects. And apparently a huge chunk of the $35 million budget was just devoted to bringing the bear to life, because the bear is in like half the scenes of the movie. And it's not just like chilling and strolling through the woods. It's like rubbing its back on the ground and doing a lot of outlandish things that kind of break one's suspension of disbelief. And I would say that there's many terrible scenes with the special effects as there are good ones, so that's kind of a double-edged sword when it comes to the bear. But in a movie that's as wild and unhinged and irreverent as this one, you can kind of give the film a pass when the special effects don't quite work. But the last big shout out needs to go to the stunning locations and the stunning photographer, all of which was shot in County Wicklow, Ireland, which I actually visited for the very first time in the spring of 2022. I was over there working on a documentary called Once Upon a Time in Ireland for director Robert O'Mara. And we visited the Powers Court waterfall, which is featured in the film Excalibur. And I'll leave a link to our documentary in the description below. But everyone in their mind has this idea of Ireland being this beautiful Emerald Isle, and it is. But just take your loftiest expectations of the physical beauty of Ireland and then just magnify them by 1,000, and you're getting close to County Wicklow, Ireland. So while this film, when you're watching it, feels very rural, feels very southern. I mean, it's got locations in Tennessee and Georgia. And it's Hick Central. However, the whole thing was shot in Ireland. But if I were to offer a criticism, it would be, as I mentioned before, that the film kind of falls apart in the last 30 minutes. And maybe falls apart is too harsh, but it makes a stylistic error in trying to take itself way too seriously. And I'm sorry, if you've got a digital bear doing cocaine and eating people, you're not allowed to take anything seriously in your film. But the jokes just kind of dry up. And so the screenplay is inconsistent and some of the performances are inconsistent, but on the whole, it is a good time at the movies. I wish we had movies like this coming out every weekend. Put it this way, if I had my choice each weekend of seeing a $35 million R-rated film versus a $200 million PG-13 rated Disney movie, I'm going to go with the $35 million R-rated film every time. This is my bread and butter. Fuck Disney, fuck Pixar, fuck Marvel, fuck Star Wars, fuck all that bullshit. Give me some R-rated entertainment. And obviously there's room in this world for every kind of movie designed for every kind of audience. If your jam is Avatar 2, like $400 million movies, more power to you. Or if your jam is micro-budgeted films that were made for $400,000 that play at Sundance, that's cool too. But what I don't like seeing is how movies that are in the range of like $5 to $50 million, like those mid-budget films, they have definitely dried up and disappeared almost entirely over the last 10 years because the studios have leaned so heavily into branded content. And I like movies. I don't like branded content. I like great movies made by cool filmmakers with an interesting take. And so I think that Elizabeth Banks is going to win back a lot of goodwill with this film. And I think it'll be a commercial success. And something tells me she'll be coming back at you with another movie in the next 2 to 3 years. No problem. But I think that's all I have to say about this particular film, so let me know what you think down in the comments below. But before I wrap things up, I do have to bring you some very important breaking news from Manscaped, the official sponsor of my podcast, Wrong Reel, because Manscaped, they now sell beard products. That's right. They are once again revolutionizing men's grooming with the brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. From a beard trim to a fresh shave, the technology behind the Beard Hedger Pro Kit allows you to shape your signature beard look. Now you can finally use Manscaped products to make your drapes match your carpet by going to manscaped.com and using the discount code WRONGREEL in all caps for 20% off and free shipping. So join the 7 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and check out the Performance Package 4.0. And remember that a grooming routine is not complete without applying both Crop Preserver and Crop Reviver before showing off your brand new, freshly shaved self. These unique formulations take care of the smelliest part of your body and are a big boost to your confidence. And to complete the set, Manscaped includes their Shed Travel Bag and anti-chafing boxer briefs as free gifts to keep all your goodies stored comfortably. Honestly, it's worth it to order the products just to get the boxers. The boxer briefs are incredible. But that's all I have for now. Hope everyone has an amazing weekend. If you enjoyed this review, please consider hitting that subscribe button, the notification bell, the like button. You know the drill. And hunt me down on Twitter at Geeking Out if you want to talk more about R-rated movies about bears killing people, which is always a crowd pleaser. But thanks for listening to my rant. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.